We go. Welcome to another edition of Hey Bobby with Senior VP of the Cleveland Guardians, my good friend Bobby DiBiasio here on WAKR, brought to you by JW Dodado Electric. Bobby, I guess first of all, you and I like to talk baseball and such. I was reading over the weekend about the percentages of home runs that are down across the board in Major League Baseball, and wanted to get into your brain a little bit. A lot of people are talking about the baseballs, but you brought something up a few weeks ago with me on this show, is that maybe the methodology is changing as well a little bit in Major League Baseball as far as putting the bat on the ball. Talk to me about what you're hearing, seeing in regards to the long ball in Major League Baseball.
You know, Ray, I believe there's two issues at play. One, I think that plays a major role, the change in philosophy. There is a change in philosophy, I believe, around baseball. In listening to the many interviews that the baseball operations people around the game have talked about, you know, getting more athletic, getting these athletes to put the bat on the ball, with the barrel on the ball with more consistency. Moving the ball around the diamond, you know, hearkening back to what Rod Carew has said the last decade about players have forgotten there are two foul poles on the baseball field. And I think they're getting back to the idea that, yeah, let's get the ball out in play and getting people on base, which is one of the reasons they enlarged the base from 15 inches to 18 inches. I think had something to do with the fact that, you know, they want guys maybe to steal a little bit more. It certainly was a health and safety issue, enlarging the base, but also the fact that, you know, maybe you'll stretch a single into a double or steal bases, get on base and get some action going. For the first time ever in the history of the game, there are humidors in every major league clubhouse starting here in 2022 to have the balls more consistent. And I think that may have played a role. Certainly there are people who have written that early in the year as home runs are down and asking that same question you did, why. They're pointing to those two issues. One, the humidors, and possibly a change in philosophy, allowing our athletes to be more athletic than just big boppers.
When you talk about our athletes, let's talk about our Guardians, young hitters. And you're seeing that kind of philosophy with these young guys that are making an impact early. Owen Miller, Stephen Kwan. We saw Palacios against the Guardians the other night. Ernie Clement. These are guys that put the bat on the ball, put it in play, singles, doubles, and you can't win if you're not putting the ball in play. And it seems like the philosophy, I don't know if this is from the top on down, Bobby. I know we have a new hitting instructor and such, but it seems like these guys coming up are more of use it, as you just mentioned, foul pole to foul pole.
Well, I think the statement that Chris Antonetti and Mike Chernoff made when we added 11 young players to our 40-man roster, truly, in one sense, historic. We had never done that in the history of our franchise. And certainly it's very rare that you would add so many young players to your 40-man roster. We just love these young athletes and did not want to lose any in the Rule 5 draft, which ended up not happening because of the lockout, but nobody knew that when it was time to submit a 40-man roster. And so we're dominated by a ton of young, really talented players who just need an opportunity to see what they can do at this level. And we're giving them that opportunity. Richie Palacios on Monday night had his major league debut, got a couple hits, and he was the 7th already in just 16 games, the 7th player for the Guardians to make his major league debut this year. 7 in just 16 games. So we are a young team. We're the youngest in baseball. I think the stat is we're the 5th youngest team in the last 20 years or something of that nature in Major League Baseball. We believe in these guys. You know, we provide them every resource possible to be the best they can be. And we need to get them at bats to really see who's going to be a keeper, who are impact players at the big league level.
I love I like watching these young guys' approaches at the plate. And I know Quan is easy to like because of the success he's had early, but Owen Miller and Ernie Clement and Stephen Kwan, these guys approach at the plate. And I know we've discussed it the last few minutes. I love their attack of the plate. They use the whole ball field. They hit the ball hard. And as Bobby mentioned a couple of times, young athletes. Bobby, the other aspect I wanted to touch on today.
Well, wait 1 second before when we talk young players, Daniel Espino, the other night in Akron. I mean, when we talk young players, we probably are going to talk about him, every minute. 11 straight strikeouts to start a ball game. I mean,
unbelievable.
My goodness, Ray, that's just ridiculous. A high school kid, #1 draft pick, has just grown into a man. And one of the coolest stories out of spring training, I think, that I've heard in a long, long time, when Daniel, because of the lockout, we had about 90 of our minor leaguers who were not on the 40-man roster or invited to spring training. We had about 90 of our minor leaguers. And there was a day that Daniel was throwing on the back fields in a bullpen session or a batting practice session. And about 30 of his teammates, minor leaguers from other fields, came over to watch his batting practice pitching because he's that good. And his teammates just revel in his ability. And again, striking out the first 11 guys. I mean, that's little league stuff. And Gavin Williams, another #1 draft pick of ours, a big 6'5", 250 kind of Hulk on the mound. We've got some pretty studly pitching coming. I know we're built on pitching in the big leagues, but you can never have enough. But before we got off the topic of young players, we had to acknowledge what Daniel did the other night at Canal Park.
Yeah, we were talking to General Manager Jim Fender of the Rubber Ducks this week, and he even said, I don't know how long he's going to be here. So he recommended people get to Canal Park and check him out as early as you possibly can. Okay, changing gears, one of the aspects I love to talk to Bobby about is our team history. And I know we talked about Larry Doby, and we've talked last week about the 48 and 54 teams. Today, 1974, marked the anniversary of the Chris Chambliss trade to the New York Yankees. Chambliss, Dick Tidrow, Cecil Upshaw all went to the Yankees. And the Indians at that time got Fritz Peterson, Fred Bean, Steve Klein, and Tom Buskey. 4 pitchers came to Cleveland in that trade, and Chambliss went on to a very solid career with the Yankees, and the pitchers, to a degree, back and forth, moderate success. So I started to think about all-time great trades by the Cleveland organization and where Bobby would look at the top of the ladder. And if he wanted to bring up a couple, that is more than fine. But Bobby, trades that worked out for us in the past, what are a couple at the top of the list from you?
Boy, when you talk trades, it's hard for me to not mention like 7 of them because of our 122-year history, because you have to go back all the way to Tris Speaker in 1916 when we acquired Tris Speaker. Tris Speaker goes on, obviously, was one of the greatest players in the game at the time. And We acquire him and he becomes player manager and manages us to a 1920 World Series and becomes a Hall of Famer and considered one of the great players in the game. So you got to, when you do it chronologically, you got to start with that one. Then you have to go to Early Wynn in 1948. Early Wynn gets traded from the Washington Senators to the Cleveland franchise. And he just goes on to be a 5-time 20-game winner and a Hall of Famer. And Eddie Robinson, I think the first baseman, was part of that trade from Cleveland to Washington. Can't even remember the other two guys off the top of my head. So you go back in time with those. Then you get into the late 50s and the worst trade ever, Rocky Colavito for Harvey Keene, but we'll skip over that one because Frank Lane doesn't deserve the attention. Then you start getting into which one was better. Okay, you've got a whole bunch here that are pretty darn good. 2010, Corey Kluber, a 2-time Cy Young winner for us, is traded for Jake Westbrook from the Cardinals. So you put that one near the top of your list. Kenny Lofton in 91, coming over, the most dynamic leadoff hitter in the history of our franchise, and one of the most dynamic leadoff hitters in the game of baseball for Eddie Taubensee and Willie Blair. I'll never forget that. I think we were in Houston for the winter meetings that year. Bartolo getting traded for Cliff Lee, Grady Sizemore, Brandon Phillips, 2002, changed the way that period of time in our franchise history. Omar coming over for Felix Vermeyen and Reggie Jefferson in 93. Again, another remarkable trade by our guys. But near and dear to my heart, because these two gentlemen, I just love them dearly, and they never said no to me. Whenever we were moving from Cleveland Stadium to Progressive Field, they were always there, in addition to Charlie Nagy, who was a #1 draft pick. But the trade of Joe Carter to San Diego in 1989 to acquire Sandy Alomar Jr., Carlos Baerga, and Chris James. Sandy and Carlos had so much to do with the renaissance of this franchise, not only as incredible athletes, but they committed to this franchise and signed multi-year contracts to stay here and build something. And much like Jose Ramirez has said, I'm comfortable here. I want to stay here. I want to build something. Sandy and Carlos were the two guys that started that trend back to build that team of the 90s. So a lot of great players have come via trades, a number of them in the last 15 years, but that's always a fun one to go back and look through. The Early Win one, pretty remarkable. You all of a sudden acquire a guy who's a 5-time 20-game winner, takes you to some pennants and such. That was a pretty darn good one.
There you go. It's Hey Bobby, Senior VP with the Cleveland Guardians. He takes time to join us each week, brought to you by J.W. Dodado Electric. The Guardians return home later next week as they've got Toronto and San Diego coming in. Head on out to the ballpark and check out the Guardians. Bobby, as always, my friend, thank you for the visit with us with Hey Bobby.
Thank you, Ray. Have a great week, buddy. Go Guardians.